Let's be real. Marketing for your company can feel like a full-time job on top of your actual full-time job. You think about hiring an agency, that's too expensive. Building an in-house team, that's too much of a hassle. What about doing it yourself? Forget about that. That's where ProMode changes the game. It's an AI-powered marketing platform built for B2B businesses that handles all of your marketing. That means the blogs, social media, emails, SEO, all of that at 10 times the speed that an agency can do it. And here's the kicker. It costs just $2,500 a month, and it has zero headaches and no hidden fees. And if you're skeptical about that, just try it risk-free with a 30-day money-back guaranteed. If you're tired of marketing getting in the way of running your business, head over to our friends at ProMode and finally get marketing handled without the stress. And don't forget to use code KCBC when you sign up to waive your $5,000 onboarding fee. Welcome everybody to Kansas City Business Cast. We are at the tail end of season 5. It has been a banger of a season so far. I have been so appreciative, so much gratitude to all of these Kansas City influencers, movers, and shakers who have been coming on this show. And it's just been incredible to watch. It's been great to see the engagement, also the collaboration that's happening with the KCBC tribe. So we've been around long enough now to where we've got guests connecting with other guests, and they're sharing the love and they're following each other. And it is exactly what I envisioned when I made this show. I'm your host, Michael Reisinger. I got a very special guest today, Brad Chandler. Let's go.
Come on, Michael. So glad to be here, man. Thanks so much for the invite, and pumped to be here on KCBC, man. Let's go.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So I stole your line for the intro saying, let's go. I love how on Making Varsity, your new podcast, how you just get right into it. And I have been geeking on your show, man. I especially like I thought about it. I was like, whether I'm a podcaster or not, if I'm watching your content. So was it Remy? She's the introvert who has the podcast, right?
Yeah.
That discussion was just so good, dude, and so insightful. And what you're able, the ground you're covering with your guests in 50 minutes, 55 minutes. We were joking before we got on about the Joe Rogans and the Sean Ryans and having 2.5 hour podcasts. And, you know, hey, I'm a fan of those podcasts and all that. I usually
they have their
to listen
place.
to them. They do,
sure.
Right? I've got to listen to them usually in multiple sittings, or like, you know, I'm outside taking a break from the kids or whatever. But the ground you're covering and the format that you do it, it's just so obvious, like you're a pro at this, right? And we know you've gotten your 10,000 hours. Can you just tell our guests about, you know, who you are, what you do, and then we'll kind of get into your journey and what you're learning in what you're doing.
For sure. Well, I mean, you know, again, thanks so much for having me. And, you know, this is a new space for me, stepping into the entrepreneur space. Really, my background for the first part of my career was in full-time ministry. And so I did youth ministry, college ministry, but then stepped into the leadership development space and actually led internships with dozens and you know, dozens and dozens of interns. We had about 100 interns at the church that I was working with in Tampa at the time. And so really being able to develop the next generation for any sphere of life and influence. And in that space, you know, you're always looking for opportunities and unique ways to deliver learning. And so the podcasting piece, I was always a consumer. I mean, I've been listening to podcasts since I was probably I was in high school. I remember being in my mechanical drawing class. I don't even know if they teach that anymore, but I had like one of the original iPods, and at the time you had to download episodes, you know, from iTunes, listen to it. So back in 2007, I'm consuming podcasts. And so I have a background in church ministry, and that's really where I cut my teeth on everything, and had a great experience. And then just through some different life events, things like that, transitioning to Kansas City, and now, you know, stepping into starting my own business. And so I've always been interested in conversations. I love talking to people. I love being able to pull out gold in people. And part of doing kind of the type of leadership development that we would do in education, because students could actually intern at the particular church, but then also earn their college degree as well. So we had a partnership
Wow.
with a Christian university where they were able to kind of do two things, because education is changing, and I have a lot of passion for that too. Just learning development and educational theory, educational development, and so the show kind of reflects that in many ways. Like, having Remy on to talk about introversion was something where I kind of got to go into a little bit of like that personality theory, which in our internship, that was one of the first things we would do with students, is take them through Myers-Briggs, take them through StrengthsFinder, really help them discover their gifts, how they're wired. And one of the things that we always found, in the particular internship that I got to lead for 5 years, is some of our best leaders that we produced out of that program were introverts, and so always interested in just kind of exploring those different things. And so just having a little bit of an eclectic take on the world, and just having curiosity. I think that's what makes any great podcaster, is to be able to have just an insatiable appetite for curiosity, learning from people, asking questions. And so, I carry myself in life that way. Sometimes it's so funny. I have to catch myself even in like social settings to go, am I interviewing this person right now, or am I like having a conversation? So it is a strange thing.
I heard you talk about that with Remy. You said, like, you ever go to parties and you go, gosh, that
in
should have been a reel.
I know. The way she reacted is like, no, you're a freaking weirdo. Like, I've never like, so, but anyway, yeah. So, so, doing full-time ministry for as long as I did. And then now stepping into this, making the transition to be closer to my kids, super grateful to be here. And so that's a little bit of the background, maybe some threads that we can pull on, because
absolutely,
as you said, the 10,000 hours piece really came from, and I had some experience in doing some side projects, some shows that maybe launched and failed at different times. But where I really got the 10,000 hours was I helped my lead pastor launch his leadership brand. It's called Just Lead, and it's still going today. I still produce the podcast even remotely. I'm not the host anymore, but for the first 150, 200 episodes, I was the host. And when you're sitting across from a world-class leader like that, he had the first 20 years of his career, he was in the music industry. So he's a very, renowned music producer. He's got Dove Awards. He uses them as like doorstops now. He doesn't care, but like
Dove Awards. Right. So working with
it's
Christian
sort of the Grammy of like Christian music,
yes,
right?
Sir.
But yep. he produced and he produced for all different types of artists, and really was part of pulling together a team. He has this really this Brooklyn energy. He's from Brooklyn. He's Italian. He's this kind of fast talking, like he's got, there's a certain it's a playful aggression, that, so the show has, we always used to say it's like, that show is like the alt rock of leadership conversation, right? And so if John Maxwell is more of your mainstream K-Love, like we're the indie label, and so even the branding, how we packaged all of that. I used to always say, like, as a host, because the episodes are like 10 to 15 minutes long, very, very short. So I used to always say, the way I picture it as a host in approaching that is, it's as if his subway stop is in 4 stops, and I only have time to get him 5 questions, and then he's like, okay, hey, I gotta get off here at Flushing or whatever, So that's a little bit of the vibe. And so just being a practitioner, like you said, you learn a thing or two through mistakes and all of that, and so stepping into this new space, doing this full time, is crazy.
Absolutely.
Like I can't believe it. Yeah,
man, that resonates so much because when I was building my coaching business and then this podcast actually became an extension of my coaching business, because I was talking to business owners and I was like, I might as well start recording these conversations, right? And
100%.
One of I call them immutable laws, and it comes from the Mike McAllowic's Pumpkin Plan book, where he says, forget core values, they got to be immutable laws. Like, your core values of your company, they're the discovered, and they should be the guiding light for how you find clients as well. If your clients have them, it's going to be like that. Where the heck have you been all my life? And experiential learning is one of my just immutable laws. We have to learn by doing. I can read about it, or in the podcasting space, I can hear about it all day long, but unless I'm doing it, and I love how you learn by doing, by hosting shows. And I love how you talk about too the ones that didn't make it, or we know the average podcast, what is it, doesn't get past 5 episodes, and then I think if you get to 12, you're in the you're
top 10%. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, and then
yeah.
it just keeps drifting from there. So just on that subject, I'm so curious about where did you realize that you wanted to do this like full time? Because now you've got your podcast, but you also, this is your business. You are helping podcasters build world-class podcasts. You're helping business owners, create podcasts out of, their knowledge. When did you figure like, I'm going to go full bore on this? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going all in, man.
Well, I mean, honestly, I kind of fell backwards into it. It was, I like to say I'm a little bit of an accidental entrepreneur. And I mentioned, went through a divorce a couple of years ago, and eventually transitioning to Kansas City. So I have 2 young girls here, and their mom lives in Olathe. And so we did long distance for a couple of years. Certainly was not sustainable. It was the last thing I ever wanted, but to step into this, it was, I was, like I said, I was always in full-time ministry, and felt called in that direction, and thought that I would continue to build out our leadership academy and continue on that journey. So it was certainly a fork in the road moment. And when it became clear, at the end of last summer, sat down with my pastor, and it was just like, hey, it's time. Like it's time to make the move, and so it was like, okay, well, what are we gonna do, and just I had such an incredible experience there to try to duplicate that, or find something in in that full-time ministry space. I really felt like I was gonna take a step back from that. In that course of time of just making the transition last fall, started picking up a few different freelance gigs. And I think when people realized that I was whatever on the market, or however you want to say it,
Right.
just started, picking some things up. And, I was just going to kind of do the LinkedIn thing, and, try to, find, just a corporate job or something like that. Knowing that, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the church is very, very astute at marketing, and there are so many business principles and things that you can learn from high level churches, especially content marketing. I think church, a lot of churches do content marketing better than 95% of businesses, and it's because they produce content on a regular basis every single week. Right? They have like a weekly message that can be chopped into short form content. There's just a lot of creativity in that space. Unfortunately, the business world isn't always aware of that, and you can get tagged with that, like, oh, church guy, got it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a little bit of, I think, what I was experiencing, just knowing that that was so much of my background, knowing that I bring so much more to the table. Because the unique thing, Michael, about the internship that we led is that a lot of church internships are focused on producing future pastors, missionaries, leaders, ministry leaders, that type of thing. What made this internship so unique, and PQ, this is that's our pastor, PQ, Pastor Q. His background with the music industry, see, he was in business for many years. So he's like, I never had anyone to really coach me into professionalism. I never had anybody talk to me about teamwork and social skills and decision making and having a foundation of leadership and understanding things like core values, understanding how things like that drive, understanding how to be a great communicator, how to be able to take cogent ideas and put them out into the world. And so we not only talked about biblical foundations and spiritual growth, but we talked about professional excellence, right? We talked about what does it look like to have, a strong character, in the workplace. And so the speakers we would bring in, everyone from Major League Baseball to Fortune 500 company leaders to we had the former executive vice president of Disney Resorts, Lee Cockrell. He was one of our keynote speakers last year. Just high level leaders from, in Tampa, big hotbed for spring training. And so
That's
a
right.
lot of MLB teams are there. And so we had people from the Rays, people from the Blue Jays, just different teams be able to come and speak. Just high level leaders that are doing things at every level. We even did a Shark Tank experience for our year 4 students where they would put together a business plan, and we had business coaches work with them. And for me, I always said, what I wanted to see them do is to step into this high pressure environment, and we would do the full production. I'll send you a clip of it, but we would do the full production. And my whole thing was, listen, you may never become an entrepreneur, and the God's whole joke in this is like, hey, you didn't know you were going to be an entrepreneur either, But I'm working with these business coaches.
If you want to hear them laugh,
thing.
tell them your plans, right? That's the way the saying goes.
Exactly. So I used to always say, it's like, hey, you may never become an entrepreneur, but after today, you probably won't have a more high pressure situation than this, because we would have these high level business leaders and they would have to pitch their business. And, it was always predicated on, on King David. When he was just a shepherd, he used to say, hey, when he faced down Goliath, hey, I've killed the lion and the bear, so what is this giant? So we always used to say, the whole point is not whether or not you become an entrepreneur. It's so that you have confidence, so that when you have that first job interview at Chick-fil-A, it's like, who's the Chick-fil-A manager? Like, I've already faced down the Shark Tank. I'm good, And so the background and all that, the transition, there were these little seeds and there were these threads that now I look back and I go, okay, I see what everything was up to. And so when I made the transition, I had an old friend of mine, Manny Arango, Dr. Manny Arango, call me, and he's like, hey, do you have any clients yet? And I was like, well, I'm picking up some freelance work. He's like, man, I got a big project, want to bring you on for. And so jumped on that team to launch their show. And then one thing led to another, and just having been in this space for as long as I have, just kind of got to be known as Brad does podcasts. And so then it really just kind of became a tip of the spear. And then it's really just been a game of trust and believe, up to this point. And so that's where we're at.
Man, in Kansas City business owners making $100,000 a year or more. Let's talk about your finances. They could be a mess, and that could cost you big, right? Are you wasting hours in QuickBooks? Are you misclassifying transactions? Are you making tax mistakes? Obviously, that's all money down the drain, or worse, an IRS fine. Silverstone Bookkeeping has helped 50 plus businesses clean up their books fast. Now, for a limited time, they're offering a QuickBooks diagnostic review and tax savings session for just $150. That's usually a $500 value. Within 48 hours, they'll flag 8 to 25 key fixes and uncover potential tax savings for your business. Give them a call at 913-732-4151 or visit silverstonebookkeeping.com now. I love it. So many things that we could unpack there. I wanted to just validate a couple things before my next sort of question or the path we take, because you started to pave the way for that. Okay, you're planting seeds. You're already too, like, we're, not even 20 minutes in, man, and you're already just giving us so much insight, and I love it. So the thing too, because like I was in a Christian metal band, right? And
same. That's actually how I got started in ministry. Yeah. I was I'm talking to the crew right now. We're trying to get a 20-year anniversary situation together.
Which band were you in?
You've never heard it. It was back in like the Warped Tour days. So yeah. So anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, just in North Carolina. We just played local shows.
Okay. I was in Sinai Beach, and we played in Greensboro. Okay. And so what band were you in, bro?
It's a band called Crimson Ink. Yeah. So
Crimson Ink. Why does that sound familiar?
Who knows?
You and I
know Sinai Beach though, bro. I might have destroyed a pit or two, with the
hey, my man. I played guitar in Sinai Beach. Craziest thing is the photos we took that are on our Spotify, those are taken in Kansas City at the El Torreon.
Come on, man.
one of my last shows with the band was here in Kansas City in
Yeah.
2004. Then my wife tells me in 2014, hey, I think God's calling us to Kansas City. And so I came out and I drove by the place getting my hair cut for like 3 years. So it's
Nice.
funny how God works. But like all that to say, bro, you and I, we're going to offline. We're going to be listening to each other's stuff and all that. We're going to
Let's
have to
go.
geek out. I love that you're a Christian music artist as well.
For
But like
sure.
you know this, bro. Like we think too, and as believers, so often we just like just trust God, just trust God. Like, and with musicians, it's even worse. It's like, uh, even worse. Like, I'm not saying trusting God's bad. I'm just saying relying on hope is not a strategy, right? So you have to learn the skills, and like if you
Yeah.
don't know how to talk to the record labels, like for us, shoot, even touring, like dealing with promoters who didn't want to pay us, or like how do you make a compelling case for business with what you're doing and with your craft and all that? And it's a set of skills that we're not taught in, usually typically public schools. I know there's different paths now that they're creating and stuff, but like these are things that we're not all taught at default. So somebody has to be bold. And to see that in the church, like right when you said that we had a program where they could get their college credits, I'm like, dude, whoever set that up is a genius, because you're just getting this convergence of building life skills, learning. You got the gospel integrated in there. Like it's just this new idea of like, as believers, like um there's this concept, Brave Cities. A couple buddies of mine, they wrote this book, and they're just talking about like if you want to change the economy, you have to be a part of commerce, right? And you have to find where God is moving in business, right? And so I just think that's so huge. I love how you got time just accidentally by doing this. You have said too, and this is where you started talking about it. We didn't name it, but you've said that the business owner's voice or the creator's voice is their most powerful asset, right? And you have the ability to unlock that. How did you figure out how to do that? So you're working with people. Obviously, you're learning by doing. You're failing forward. You're kind of, it's an iterative process. But where did you get so good at finding these hooks and finding and unlocking the voice of the people that you're working with? How do you bring
Yeah.
that out of them? I got a
Yeah.
way
I
of
mean,
asking 5 or 6 questions into one.
no, that's fine. I mean, for me too, like I said, it really birthed out of, having these incredible leaders to put in front of, these high school and college students for many years. And even though they're high level leaders that are the best at what they do, they're not necessarily always the strongest communicators. And so you have to do a little bit of work to pull out the gold inside of them. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, like, and it had a lot of respect in the community too, and still does. I mean, it's one of those experiences where business leaders in Tampa want to be, a speaker at the internship, and we fly in, speakers from other places as well, but really try to lean into that business community too. Which, by the way, I should say this as well, is strategic. Because here's the other thing that I think the church misses the mark, is that you have these guys that are leading these 7-8 figure businesses, sometimes especially when you're in a major city, that are like batting at a very high level. And then if they come to join the church and get involved in any capacity, or maybe begin volunteering or serving, what do we have for them? Well, okay, be a greeter at the door. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Sure, you can be friendly and be part of that. It's not to say that they're not willing to serve, but is that befitting of the gift that is on their life? And that was and for us and for our pastor and for our team, we said no. We want to be able to lean into all of what's inside of them. So to have literally the director of performance training, like the director of mental development for the Toronto Blue Jays. This is the guy who's responsible for, if Bo Bichette goes on a cold streak, okay, to get his head right, okay, to have him come and talk about like mindset and growth mindset and breaking through barriers to 16-year-olds, like that is something. And he would look forward to it all year. I mean, the internship is in the middle of the summer. Okay. I don't know if you know this, like summer's kind of a big time in baseball. he would clear his calendar and make sure that he could be a part of that. And so what I realized even in that was in those like panel discussions, fireside chats, those type of things, I'm like, this guy's brilliant, but trying to pull that message out to communicate it to teenagers is I began to realize like, oh, this is a skill in and of itself, is to unlock the expertise in a business owner, unlock the expertise in an executive leader and a high level leader, because they're very good at what they do and excellent at their craft, but oftentimes they can get lost in their own jargon. They've been doing it probably for so long that they even underestimate their expertise because they go, well, everybody knows this. But then if you can begin to help them package it in such a way to invite people along on the journey, that's when it's powerful. And so, yeah, the when I say that, your voice, what if your voice is the most powerful asset in your business? It's because it's not limited by any resources. Like your knowledge and your expertise is the most valuable expertise in your business. And I mean, it's the most valuable asset in your business. It's not limited by time. It's not limited by, because it can always grow. It can always scale. You can always learn. You can always get better. And so, on the tactical side of it, something like launching a podcast or a YouTube channel or doing content marketing in any way, it answers a lot of other questions in the marketing stack for a business. Because when you can really put someone in front of a camera and unlock their expertise, especially if they're in a career that is knowledge based. So say someone's an accountant or fractional CMO or however you want to look
Sure.
at it, they have any kind of business acumen to be able to unlock that. It solves a lot of issues when it comes to content marketing, posts on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn content, written content, email strategy, on and on and on. When you can create sustainable systems for them to be able to sit down just like we're doing today. The great thing is like, I'm going to be getting some marketing even just from doing this show today. And all I did was wake up this morning and turn on a camera.
That's right.
And I think a lot of what we're doing here is intimidating to the maybe the average business owner or lay leader, because they go, oh, how do we do that? And you just need someone to guide you through the process. And so that was what I began to realize is like, okay, if I can really help a leader, if I can help a business owner uncover their message and find a unique angle for them to attack something, the power of what a podcast can do for your business, and I mean in any sphere, is I think quite surprising to a lot of people. And if for anything else, for the relationships, for being
Yeah,
able to build relationships and the networking, because it's the ultimate warm lead. It's not every day that that someone in their community gets an invite to be, on a show like this. And that's why, people jump at the chance to do it. And I don't know as much about your coaching business, but I'd be willing to bet almost anything that the result of you doing this show and the relationships that you've built over the past 50 plus episodes, you're already seeing some of the payoff of that. And if
big,
for anything else, to have some people who are in the trenches or being able to ask the questions that you want to ask, that you typically have to pay for a consulting fee there, but because they're on your show, you
absolutely.
just get to ask it for free.
Absolutely, dude. Oh my gosh. Just you know what? It truly, as you were talking, there's so many threads we could pull there. One of the things that you pulled out, you said in any sphere, and people would be surprised. What has been a podcast endeavor or a path that you led a client down that surprised you and the client? Can you, I know I'm putting you on the spot there, but like you said, fractional CMO, or like if you're an accountant, knowledge base, what's an area or an element or maybe a non-conventional approach in an industry where a podcast would be a non-conventional approach that you've been surprised by, the connection and the results or results in business or whatever? I mean,
Yeah.
does anything come to mind?
So I'll give you one. I am in a podcast community where it's a paid community. So I have a coach, David Shands. He's incredible. He's in Atlanta, And he's had a show for many years, Social Proof, where he's interviewed high level entrepreneurs. And he just launched a show last year that completely flipped it on his head, and I love this. And it's called The Hot Seat. And so what he did was he found this gap where um, so many people have shows where they're interviewing the experts, and it's a tried and true method, and I still swear by it. I think that's the path that most people should go down. He flips it because he's interviewed so many people. What he did was he started interviewing like whack entrepreneurs, like people who are like have the two. I think the last episode I looked at this morning, I was listening to, it was going, she makes $200 a month being a yoga instructor. So what he does is he hot seats these entrepreneurs that are trying to like figure their way out, okay, and he gives them coaching advice, like business development advice, completely flips it on its head. And I thought that, I was like, man, that is so genius. Like, I don't know why more people haven't done that,
Yeah.
And so I'm even, like I said, and I work with, and just to be clear, I don't just work with church leaders. I work with,
Thank you for
lots
that.
of different business owners, people outside of that sphere. But naturally, because I'm in that space, and so even my podcast, Making Varsity, it's a little bit of an effort of a rebrand for me too, because I have always been seen, in that Christian leadership development space.
Yep.
And so to be next to having conversations with Hayden Roberts, the Sunny Collabs, having conversations, with videographers, different people like that, to talk about influencer marketing, in a lot of ways, it's kind of positioning myself into that place. So there's it's having a purpose for whatever it is that you're up to. But so, I mean, my show's a little more of a classic approach, an interview approach, but I really, really, I love the hot seat right now. Like that's one of my favorite ones.
I'm
And
gonna have to check
but
that
yeah,
out.
there's a lot of angles, and it's just kind of finding the unique threads that you can pull on. And that, by the
Absolutely.
way, is usually the intersection of all of your different interests. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of they think that their show has to simply be about their niche. But the reality is every single professional and every single business owner has their own hobbies. They have their own interests. They have their own things. And whether it's something subtle, like just sliding Macho Man into the back of your of your podcast studio or whatever else, it's all these little intricacies that you can pick up on. And so the episode that comes out, next week for me, I've actually got one of the podcast producers from The Ringer and Spotify, and he does all of The Ringer's wrestling shows, and we talk about WrestleMania because it's WrestleMania week.
Dude.
And so being able to, for me, I'm like, that's something I enjoy. I love WWE, right? I'm super pumped to come to the T-Mobile soon, and so I'll be there. But it's one of those things. It's all of those interesting intersections. That's actually where creativity is found. When you have that intersection of genres, that's where things get really, really interesting. And I think a lot of times business owners are afraid to go in some of those directions because they're used to being their LinkedIn selves. And if they would just kind of drop the drop the corporate speak a little bit and just be a human for a moment, it's much more compelling, especially in a social environment, being able to connect with people. So
Absolutely. So yeah, and on the subject of your show as well, you started to talk about that, and something that, man, you just got me right away. By the way, too, couple of squirrels. We're gonna get you some black drip coffee today. I forgot to do that. So Sharon and Dan, thank you guys and everything you guys are doing through Porterhouse KC. So Brad, I'll make sure we get you the info, no charge, get you a bag of Renegade Blend, man.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Other thing, as a guy, a kid who grew up having birthday parties and pizza parties, sleepovers for Royal Rumble, love all the wrestling stuff you're into, man. And I love how that comes out. And yes, we know it's not real, doesn't have to be. But at the same time, it's very real. It's a very real deal. And so maybe I got to look into that event coming up too. Maybe I'll find a way to get out there and see you there.
For
Um,
sure.
but with your show making Varsity, so the thing that just, man, you were tugging on my heartstrings. You're talking about, you're a first generation entrepreneur and how you and your crew, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but you are not about making it. You are in the tension, right? The tension of getting there. I'm gonna butcher it, but I just love how you are basically about the journey. Have you always been okay with the tension, man? I got to ask you. And what was your journey like to making Varsity?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I mean, the name, it's a little bit of a double entendre. The name of the agency that I'm building is Made by Varsity, right? And
That's
so
right. That's right.
it's a little bit of a tip of the cap to all of those years being at Friday night football games as a youth pastor, and all of those pieces, and so it's a little bit of a tip of the cap to student ministry and all of that. But really, this whole idea of what does it mean to go to the next level? What does it mean to make it? And that's what I wanted, the show to sort of explore, was that core question, because I think a lot of people have different metrics by what that means, whether that's the highest point of achievement, or for some people, making it is just getting by, right? It's just
Mm.
surviving. They're trying to encourage their family. They're just trying to show up every day and grind, whatever that looks like. I come from a very blue collar background. My dad was a plant manager at a paper tube factory. So I have Southern roots. I'm the grandson of a tobacco farmer. Like, it's I come from just middle class America, like, and so this is all brand new to me. And so even stepping into this space, it's been interesting. Even talking to my parents, they still live in Virginia, and just kind of talking with them, celebrating some of the successes. And they're going, now what are you doing? Wait, how does that
What do you
work?
do again?
And so they, yeah. And
you
so
you
it's
talk in front of a camera? You help other
so
people
yeah,
talk?
exactly. And so even the consulting piece, they're like, wait, somebody pays you to do that?
Yes,
And
sir.
so it's one of those things where it's I've had to really reach out and build this whole other community around me. And this whole process, I mean, even who someone, how we met and got connected is through someone that I barely know, Jason Romero, shout out.
Yeah.
But we met inside of like a week long, coaching challenge with Omar El Takori, big fan of Omar and his stuff. And so, doing some content stuff. So for me, this is the last thing I wanted to do was position myself as this marketing expert that's been doing this for 30 years, because that's just not true, right? And the reality is, in that space, I think what I realize, especially, being rubbing shoulders with the business community for the past decade, is the unfortunate thing about marketing guys is they get tagged. There's a little bit of a stereotype where there's some sliminess attached to it. Let's just be honest. I think a lot of times there's a lot of over promising and under delivering, and that's the thing that I never wanted to be. Like, I wanted to be somebody that delivered on trust. And part of that is just where I come from, right? It's just like, that's my roots, like, right, like that's my grandmother, like that's my parents, like that's it's honor your word, do what you say you're going to do your best, deliver on excellence. And so, and I think a lot of times in the marketing space, the unfortunate part about it is there's so much focus on virality. There's so much focus on you know uh you know hype and so many of those things. And I think some of it too was just really in those years, those formative years, and working with PQ too. He's seen it all, been in the music industry, done the schmoozing, done all of that stuff, and come out on the other side of it and gone, no, but like, what are the meat and potatoes type things that really grow, business? And so um I think I think for me, that was the way that I wanted to approach it. And whether I'm interviewing somebody that is in the early stages of their entrepreneurial career, or that there's somebody that has a lot of success, the thing that I'm actually sometimes the most fascinated by are their first 2 years. And this too.
Mm.
After doing podcasting for a little while, it takes it takes probably about 50 to 100 episodes to really get the flavor of the direction of your show. And as I'm kind of doing this and batching more of my shows, what I'm beginning to see a theme emerge, the thing that I'm attracted to time and time again are, what are those early stages? Because here I am in the first 6 months of my entrepreneurial career, and it's difficult. Like, what can you really learn from Jeff Bezos? What can you really learn from Elon Musk at that level? Right? No, like I want to know, who are the people that were just like me, that were just getting started out. Like, thank God I have a client who she's a fractional CFO, and so she does financial advising and things for different businesses, small businesses, outsource bookkeeping, things like this. Oh my gosh, just being able to do social for her has been a godsend, because every piece of mail I get, I'm like, hey, do I need to pay attention to this mail? Do I go to jail if I don't fill this out right? It's just having her as a client has been so valuable. And so I'm like, I don't know that anybody's brave enough to ask these dumb questions, and it's why I'm not afraid to interrupt a guest when they say something. I had a guest recently, he was talking about micro influencers. I was like, hang on.
Yeah.
What is that?
That's the guy from Sunny Collabs.
How many? Exactly.
Yeah.
How many
You said, give us
followers
numbers.
Give us numbers, because when you're in that space, right, he's using a term that's very it's very ubiquitous in his world. Everybody knows, like, micro influencers, anybody from 5,000 to 10,000 followers on Instagram, and local businesses can use that to to leverage with their marketing. Well, I'm not going to let you get away with, first, it's my show, okay? And so what I'm not going to do, because I'm always, as a great podcast host, has to be a proxy for their audience. Right. They have to be thinking about their audience on the other side of it. And I am not serving my audience well if I do not ask the silent question that I know that they're asking on the other side.
Absolutely.
Wait, what's that? And so I think as a host, you gain a lot of credibility when you do that.
Right.
And the thing is like, I'm not trying to posture for that particular guest. Like, in that case, you have to have confidence that they're on your platform, in that setting. And so,
having said that, I want to ask you something.
Sure.
Because you've talked about, you're basically, what you're describing is a networking cheat code, right? Like you're it's very similar to why a lot, like some of us, I noticed you've read StoryBrand 4 times, 5 times. Have you read Coach Builder yet by Donald Miller? Coach Builder.
Yeah.
Woo! Oh my gosh, it's so good, right?
Yeah.
But like,
Donald Miller's my spirit animal for sure.
Oh my gosh, yeah, dude. My wife got to go to one of the early StoryBrand classes with him. She was in the room with like 13 other people, and the stuff that you glean from that, and just like in Coach Builder too, how you write down the things you're good at, and then on the right side, what can you make products? How can you make products out of those things? But what you're talking about is like, there is this sort of knowledge transfer that happens, that by working with people and helping them get their voice out, it's also helping you, right? And podcasting, it totally is, dude. Absolutely. There are relationships that I will have for the rest of my life because of this podcast. One thing that I'm sure audience members want to know is, you are new to Kansas City. And I was telling you before we started this, like, I ask every guest, how do you network in Kansas City? And usually the answer is some variation of the same thing. But for you, it's been, it's very fresh. So outside perspective, what's been effective for you in Kansas City? I mean, what do you like about Kansas City too? Like, what beauty are you finding as you're getting to know people in this space?
100%. Well, I moved here from Tampa, so I'm certainly adjusting to the weather. I had to go buy a proper coat from Shields, and so is that how you say it? Is it Shields?
It's Shields,
okay,
yeah,
whatever.
Shields.
Yeah,
my favorite.
I love
sport,
that
bro.
place. First of all,
I get lost in that place, bro. I can't go in there with no money in the bank account. Like, I gotta have at least something.
Dude, I'll just go in there and just walk around sometimes. Holy cow, that place is incredible.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. It is very new, and Many of my clients are remote at the time because I'm still establishing myself in the city. But
Yes, sir.
I've found a lot of value in, whether it's just posting up at a local coffee shop. I'm in Overland Park, and so I'm very close to Pilgrim Coffee. Love it over there. And so I'll just kind of make a Friday of posting up, doing some video edits, sending some emails, connecting with some clients, and then grabbing some wings from the peanut to hop home in time for SmackDown. That's a good Friday for me.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I mean, I think also there's incredible power. The very first client that I won in Kansas City was actually based off of, I was in a couple of Facebook groups, because again, I'm new to a city, and I think that first of all, just a little bit of a hack. Neighborhood Facebook groups are still one of the most underrated places to do networking if you do it the right way. Now, if you're in there trying to sell all the time, then that's not what it's intended for. I think Facebook groups are one of the last places in social media that are truly social. And so the very first client, I had only been boots on the ground here for about 2 weeks, and I was just looking for some local restaurant recommendations, and noticed a business owner was locked out of, he mentioned, hey, I'm locked out of my Facebook account, I don't know what to do, da da da. I just happened to see it first, DM'd him, and then that led to really a significant retainer, and working with his company, and they're crushing it, doing it's a service-based business. And so really that just came out of a heart to serve, like, well, I can fix it. What's going on, bro? Like, I got you. And I think, having that level of authenticity of just going in, seeking to serve and add to the conversation. Because I think that those Facebook groups, the ones that are well moderated and well managed, are incredible. Especially for me, like I don't know as many people, so but it being a resource to step into the city. I think also just community groups. I'm part of. I'm in a pickleball group that meets every Tuesday. We have brunch on Saturdays, every other Saturday as well. And so I'm just connecting with young professionals in that environment. Pickleball is like the new golf, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in terms
Yes,
of,
sir.
building business deals, things like that. It's really, really incredible. I've met a ton of people through that, and that's been amazing. And but just showing up and being your authentic self. I think being successful in any way, and this goes for being a podcast host, and this goes for being a business owner. If you can be interesting and be interested, you can go a long way in your life, right? Be interesting,
Absolutely.
be interested. And I think and so many ways I am having to drink the Kool-Aid that I sold for so many years to young leaders and developing them. And now I'm like all this stuff is true. Like, it's not just theory. And that's the problem with education a lot, right? It's a lot of knowledge taught without experience. And then now, in many ways, I'm being able to apply this. And so it really is a joy to be able to do that. As far as formal networking, I'm gonna, this is really, my first step into some of that. I think now I'm feel good, gotten more established in the city, learning my way, and excited to start hopping out to some networking events. I'm aware of a few different groups, just haven't made the plunge yet.
Yep.
Wanted to kind of figure out the offer, right? Like figure out, okay,
Yes, sir.
what is actually the tip of the spear? What value do I actually bring? And now that I've begun to get a little bit more clarity on that, looking forward to jumping into some of those. So, man, if you have recommendations, I'm there. So
Yeah.
but yeah,
Absolutely.
I love, I think as far as the city, it's an incredible place to raise a family. Like I said, I have 2 young girls. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go like full Blue Valley, like soccer dad yet, like
Yeah.
I bought a track jacket and I just started walking around with a little bit more of like a swagger. And I was like, are we really gonna do this thing? you know?
I know,
Cause,
right?
cause
I
I mean,
know.
I am literally just an earshot from the Shields soccer complex.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
amazing,
mean,
that
there are
place.
people out there at 6:45 a.m. on Saturday, bro. So
Yeah.
I'll say too, I mean, I'm, you know, only if my kids want to do sports, that'll probably be, you know, a natural extension to, you know, of just
Yeah.
relationships. But for me,
Absolutely.
man, I just I love being able to meet people and walk in and fill a room, you know? And
Yes.
I think when you can do that, you know, people want to do business with you eventually. So,
Absolutely, man. Well, yeah, I definitely have some insights about networking, different groups that I've interacted with, and all that. And something that I'll say, being a new transplant, I told you this too, right? I said, I'm willing to introduce you to anybody who's in the KCBC tribe, right? And I
yeah.
won't play matchmaker,
Yeah.
because that is one of the things that I think people mean really well.
Mhm.
But I've lived a lot of life, right? And I've received advice that I should have followed. I've received advice that I shouldn't have followed.
Mhm.
And when people are making recommendations of things for you to try, they don't have all the insights. And sorry, I keep wiping my nose, like I'm going through allergies, I think. But
You're good. You're good, man.
something that I realized when I got into this space was that I had to be very mindful of the information that I was receiving. And there's so much noise in the entrepreneur space too, right? Like I want to say you've actually mentioned a couple of things as well so far, but like, we've got like these. Oh yeah, here's where you said Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. It's like, how am I going to learn from like those folks? Like, I've got to be with people like. I'm a firm believer that we should always have people that we're locked arms with. They're at our level. We should have people that are slightly ahead of us, and then we should have people that are slightly behind us, because we want. I get that sense about you too, man. Like, you love passing on some information and being helpful to others and serving others. But I feel like you talk about the tension. I feel like that's how I've found like a positive tension, right? And so I've met business owners that they might have been super successful, but they don't have interest, or maybe they think I would be too much of a burden, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'd be too knowledge hungry, and I might require too much of their time. And so I try to be mindful, and maybe I think about it a little bit too much. But I think it's so important that when you find folks that you connect with, and that are also going to challenge you, right? Because like,
Yeah.
you don't want to surround yourself with yes people in your community. And that's a challenge too, adulting and relocating. You don't have the relationships with people that you did in high school. Like, I didn't, like, most of my buddies that I grew up with, they're all in California. In fact,
Yeah.
none of them are here, right? And so I've
Yeah.
had to figure out stuff as a new guy here in Kansas City, a new business owner, a new podcaster, a new dad, a late dad, right? Because my wife and I, we went through infertility. So like, I grew up watching my buddies have kids, and now we've got littles later in life, right? And so there's all that tension, man. That I think the more that I've leaned into these spaces too, the more comfortable I've been with just going off the cuff. And like, like, say if I was invited to a networking meeting or a networking pickleball event, even though I'm an ambivert leaning more towards introvertness, I could show up for that, and it'd be a switch, and I could be available. I'd probably have to go read a book or sit in silence afterward, because that's how I recharge. But it is a lot of effort when you get to a new space. And I think giving yourself that grace too, of like, I'm gonna find more and more people that I connect with. And I love too how you just in the Facebook group, like, that's a great example too, and a testimony of who you are, Brad. Like, as a person, like, you're just like,
Yeah.
hey, I see somebody, I can help them with something, I'm gonna help them. Be authentic. Um, Wanted to ask you, about the things that are challenging right now. So, you've mentioned just, being new to a certain area. What are some challenges that you're working on right now, building your business and trying to figure out how to take what you've known in your 10,000 hours and communicate it with a new audience or new people?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, even the show itself, making Varsity, it's like I said, it's a little bit of a documenting journey, because I mean, even I'm even more candorous on my email list too, where I'll share a lot of the wins, the challenges, the things that I'm facing, because I really want to document the process. I want to look back at this in 10 years and really document some of the things that I'm learning right now. And for me, I'm in that space where I am stepping across the gap from freelancer to building out a proper business with contractors. So just brought on my first couple of contractors earlier this month, and beginning to outsource some of the work, because when you're just starting, man, you're just hustling, you're just trying to, like, oh, you need somebody to do Facebook ads? I got you, bro. Like, you need somebody to do, okay, I'm good. You're just hungry. You're just trying to make it, right, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And then you get to a point where if you're not careful, you can, all you really did was created a job for yourself, right? And so you didn't necessarily build a proper business. And so for me, the advantage of being able to work with other clients who are client facing as well, who have their own clients, who have scaled with 1099 employees, who have scaled with contractors. Like I said, I mean, even working with the fractional CFO that I mentioned, her whole thing is helping businesses decide, when is it time to hire, when is it time to bring in this person. So she has those strategic, checkpoints. And so, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of power in being able to just have a relationship like that, to go, hey, am I overthinking this? Am I, when is it time to maybe bring on a VA or outsource some tasks? And so
Virtual
a
assistant,
lot of it
right?
is,
VA
exactly,
is
a virtual assistant. Yeah,
Yep.
100%. And so if you've got strong standard operating procedures, especially in our world where there's some technical things, there's uploads, there's
templates,
there's writing descriptions, templates, things like that.
Yep.
You can outsource a lot of that work and really begin to duplicate it. And I think that even whether you transition from a job or whatever, anytime you have to pass on a project or a task, you learn, like, oh man, those documenting those processes are so key. And so that's what I'm beginning to realize, like, okay, it's the old cliche, okay, working in the business versus working on it.
Right.
And I had someone, actually, the leader of my particular pickleball group, which you should have him on the show, Daniel Segalo from 428 Marketing. He is really crushing, very strong agency in the city. And he told me early on, 428 Marketing. Yeah, I'll put you in touch with him.
Appreciate that.
But he is he they do web SEO, and that's really their take. But he told me early on, I mean, when we first met at Pilgrim Coffee, he's like, Brad, the quickest that you can become the salesman for your own business and outsource the actual delivery of the work, he's like, the better. He's like, that's one of the things that he's like, but the thing is it's tempting. It's tempting as a freelancer to take the money, because you're like, all right, I want to, again, you're trying to scale, you're trying to feed your family, right? You're trying to grow all of these different things. And as you begin to, there's a lid, and so John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid, right? And so there's a certain lid where I think a lot of people in the marketing space, if they start out as a freelancer, they can get to this place where they can get full up, and sometimes they get to that place and they go, I'm good, like I'm happy, I'm set. But if you're not careful, you can get on this treadmill, right?
Yep.
And not let go of things.
Yep.
And having been in the leadership space and been around high capacity leaders and leading large teams, I mean, you don't pull off an internship like that without a massive team. I mean, we had about 120 people on our team to just to pull that thing off.
Right.
And so it's delegate and elevate. And so the difference is, in the church space, most of the time that's volunteer. When you're in a business space, you got to pay people, So
That's right.
It's one of those things where I'm like, all right, it's that's a little bit of a learning curve. And so, for me, those first couple of video edits that I outsourced to other people, that was a little bit of it was like a control thing for me, because I'm
Big
like,
time, bro.
I know it's not going to be to my 100%, but can it get to like 83%? And I
Yeah.
can coach them there, good, because then
Right.
I'll eventually be able to bring on a video editor that will far surpass my expectation, at my expectations. But
Yes.
for me, it's realizing like, okay. And I think too, the challenge of it is realizing, oh man, I love the proposal process. I love the sales process. I love being able to talk about what we're up to, and that's when I'm realizing like, man, I want to do more of that. And so that's kind of the challenges I'm facing. I'm facing
Yeah.
that as I'm building the agency. And so making Varsity in many ways is documenting it, and an astute listener will pay attention. I am asking questions not just for my audience, but for myself, right? I want to know,
Absolutely, brother.
and so that's one of those pieces
That's
where I'm just documenting the process.
That's what I had in my brain when you were talking about a good podcast host will key into what their audience wants to know. And I was really having like a dilemma in my brain of like, why am I asking people, what's my motivation for having people on this show, right? And how am I using this show as a vehicle to create a resource for people to learn about people in our city, in our region? It's funny, I get so many emails from people, entrepreneurs and people across the globe and like in California and stuff. Hey, can I be on your show? And I'm like, and you know how it goes, right, Brad? They say, hey, I listened to your episode with so and so. It was wonderful. I wanted to know if I could be on your show. I make balloon decorations in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
just I can't even respond, right? Because of the flood of that stuff that comes in. But I think about the fact that selfishly, like, of course, man, part of having you on this show was like, I have something to learn from this guy. Like, and I'm thinking about what you're saying too about getting your first two contractors. Huge congratulations, by the way, because there is so much in that. You just described it, having strong SOPs or standard operating procedures. I love how you talked about the trust thing. Wait, can I get to 80%? Can I get to 85%?
Yeah.
I'm currently in that right now. And I have had many conversations with very close, trusted advisors. I'm saying it on the air right now, but like, Michael, your boy, we're getting weary, right? Like I feel good about the podcast. Like I feel great about, we've got sponsorships. But I am in that tension right now, brother, of I've got to find somebody to help with some of this stuff, or I need to lower my expectations of what this can be, which I don't want to do. I know that truly, man, every podcast has that potential to become something more than what we could have ever dreamed it to be. And the last thing I want to do is make it where, I record 2 episodes a quarter and just release them whenever I feel like. I want to keep doing it, but it truly is unsustainable. The amount of work, right? I was talking to a guest, the average amount of time I spend, if we talk about like from the time scheduling a podcast to then we record it, to then we do the editing of the full episode, and then we try to pull out some meaningful reels. And then the week we advertise them, getting them into stories. Now, there's mechanisms to schedule, which we absolutely do on this show. Like, we use all the different platforms, which saves us some time. If I think about when I first started, I was probably spending about 20 hours per episode per guest. Now I'm down to like probably 6-7 hours, which I feel like is crushing in a way. But what I need to do is I need to spend an hour and a half on this show, which is the hour and a half that I interview people, if
No
I
doubt.
want to keep going.
Well, and the truth is you name the podcast that you look up to, for a model that you consume that's crushing it on any level.
Sean Ryan's
Nobody's doing
show.
it alone. Nobody's doing it
That's
alone.
right.
There's a producer behind the scenes. There's people doing short form. I mean, even the project that I'm doing with Arma Courses and Dr. Manny Arango, I want to give them their flowers. Like that's been an incredibly successful project and something that it's been a joy to work on with an old friend of mine, and to we just want to give them their flowers. They cracked the top 10 at debut in their category. Michael, it's a
Wow.
daily show. It's a
It's
365 episode show.
and
The
what's the name of that
scope.
show?
It's called
365?
it's called the Bible Department.
That's
So
right, the Bible department.
basically what it is it's a daily Bible reading plan, and they've had the plan for many years. It's how they built their email list. And by the way, one of the best things that you can do when you launch a show is to make sure, like, build your email list first and then launch your show. And so
Wow.
it's incredibly powerful. Email marketing is super underrated. I think people really miss out. I mean, our email list, I think we have, 65% open rates, which is gnarly for email lists. Is that not normal? We built that email list, they built it over time, just through that Bible reading plan. So it's a Bible reading plan that's daily. And then basically Dr. Manny breaks down that particular reading for the day, just kind of YouTube set up right in front of the camera, and the way that only he can do it. Talks
He's
about
awesome.
context clues, talks about nerdy nuggets, talks about timeless truths, and just lays it out. So we started in the New Testament, and then we work back, and then we work backwards and go into the Old Testament. And so it's a little bit of unique delivery, but the cool part about managing that show is, we have so many people involved. There's outside contractors doing graphics, another guy doing thumbnails, another guy doing carousels, another, people doing short form. We have one guy who's just doing the episodes, just cutting those things. You've got, some behind the scenes content writers. We've got a researcher on that team that lives in England, right? And so when we're asleep,
Wow.
he's up working, and so to like being able to see something on the scale like that, well, it's like, well, yeah, of course, but realizing that, as a business owner, you have to release and let go of some of those things. Otherwise you'll be capped by your own capacity. So even for me right now, like, I have to take my own advice, because I'm going, even my own show, like, as I'm trying to deliver for other clients, like my own show right now, I'm having to kind of manage my expectations. And so I've really kind of
Yes, sir.
put myself on, like, I'm not so concerned with the views and subscribers at this time. For me, the biggest win is the rebrand. I am positioning myself in these conversations to be seen as a player in the marketing space. And if I do that and I show up weekly with an upload, then I'm good. The views will come once I have
Yes,
time,
sir.
to outsource some of that to the team, the resources, then we will get there. But yeah, with the Bible department, it's a perfect example of that stuff does not happen without a team. And,
Right.
so.
Man, I love that. Dude, I have so enjoyed talking with you today, Brad. And you already know. I mean, even before this show, this is our first time seeing each other face to face, too,
Yeah,
right?
bro, you've been a huge cheerleader for me, man. It's meant a lot to me, seriously. So,
Dude,
yeah.
I know a real one when I see them, and where I was going with that is, like, to give you your flowers. Like, you got a huge fan in me, and I'm sharing your stuff with our audience, and with I noticed too you've connected with a few people in the tribe too, right? Like John. I don't know if you've met.
I'm trying to, that's my next stop, bro. I'm trying to get on I-70. Let's go,
Dude,
John. Call your boy.
dude,
I will
he
come
is
through.
he
That dude's
is
hilarious.
he's just such a good dude. Actually, that's part of why we rescheduled this. Was the I got an invite to his 100th episode, and I was like,
Dope.
I can't miss this, right? Like,
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
to go. And so you were so gracious with the reschedule, which
No worries,
I
man.
hate doing that stuff, but, like,
Yeah.
just knowing who you are, bro, that you're in the space, you're new to Kansas City, warm welcome. I love that you've been, it sounds like, your community, your neighborhood, people have welcomed you with open arms.
Yeah.
I love how you're just this making varsity thing, dude, and your expectations too. I think that's important for everyone. I have a lot of podcasters that listen to this show, and we all talk about the grind and the struggle. And some of our podcasts, my podcast friends, they have crews that help them with this stuff, right? And they're they're pouring into me and they're helping me figure out how to do that as well, because I'm like, who's going to be my first employee or my first contractor to help with the show. And so dude, I'm just so grateful that God brought you to Kansas City, man. I know
Yeah.
you said you fell backward into Kansas City and into this
Yeah.
stuff, and you described that. But
Yeah.
is there anything that we didn't cover that you're feeling, is on your heart, or something that you feel like you need to say before we kind of sign off and hang in there until part 2 in the future?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think, it's been a great introductory conversation. And I think, like you said, I mean, we can continue to get into, any of the strategies and tactics. I mean, for me, I mean, my biggest thing is I seek to serve. For me, I shared this with my community recently. I heard this quote many years ago, and it was really talking about Jesus. The way that he approached his ministry was he never sought to be beautiful, he sought to be helpful, right? So he never sought to be impressive in the way that he did. He sought to be helpful. And I just think that if you seek to serve, right, you're always going to have in business, you're always going to have a client on the other end. And so for me, I just go, I want to do whatever I can to help my clients win. I want to do whatever I can to serve the people around me and add value, and that's how you become really a linchpin and to over deliver. I mean, like I think I was even saying, the Bible department deal was really just a launch consultancy at the time, and then it really has blossomed and turned into a longer term relationship. Why? It was because I want to show up with excellence and I want to deliver on that, whatever that looks like. And so I would just say to your community, to anyone in the city, I mean, I'm so thrilled to be here. Like I said, I mean, some of the sometimes, when you make a move, it can feel like your life gets turned upside down in so many different ways. And I, for a little while, like, I kind of came to Kansas City kicking and screaming a little bit, but have begun to fall in love. And I think the powerful part about it, and you'll have to forgive me, it's been a long time since I've preached, but I feel like I'm like
Hit
preaching a
me,
little bit
drop
here.
it, bro.
But like, everybody, talks about, Jeremiah 29, the whole, like, for I know the plans, that I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and keep you. What people don't always realize about that verse that gets, printed on coffee mugs or whatever else, is that that's in the midst of exile, right? That's in the midst of a place that is not their home. And the command right before that is that you're going to go to this place that's not your home. You're going to build homes. You're going to plant gardens. You're going to give your daughters away in marriage. You're going to seek the welfare of the city, and in it, you will find your welfare. And that's one of those passages that has come so clear for me, because for a long time it was like, uh, yeah, Kansas City, like it represented a lot of pain for me because of the personal journey and some of the things that, I was navigating. It represented a place that's not my home. But even in transitioning here and beginning to find beauty and beginning to find home and beginning to find my place, I'm like, okay, there's a garden over here, and this relationship, there's a garden over there. And then eventually, as I'm on assignment here, right, to see my girls through high school, to be part and present in their life, to be able to raise them into the world changers and the call that is on their life, and develop the unique purpose that's on them. Like, that's my number one call, like, more than anything else. And even this entrepreneurial journey opening up the doors for me to be able to do that. And so I'm already beginning to see that man, as I begin to seek to serve Kansas City, however it is, and I'm beginning to see just, blessing come my way in a way that I never expected, and so I would just say that, like, I think if someone, can appreciate that. And so it's those daily steps, and finding my footing still, and finding home. But that is, I think, if you're always seeking not to be impressive but seeking to be helpful, I think that there is an attractive quality about that, and so I'm pumped. I'm pumped to continue to meet business owners here and get out to some of these networking events and some podcast launches. I'll tell you what we need to do. First of all, I heard that we got a little bit of a group chat with some of the KC podcasters. First of all, where's my invite? Haven't got my invite yet. But low key, man, like we should do some live events. I
Yes,
think that
sir.
this community, even when I'm beginning to see what you're doing, I think is so incredibly special. I'm so glad that you got the KC thing on lock. And I think that, there's a lot of opportunity here, and this city is growing, man. There's a life here. And like I said, there's a part of it where I'm really beginning to fall in love, and trying to decide where I'm going to grab season tickets right now. I got Sporting KC like ringing my phone off the hook, and so I'm trying to decide where, because I think that's important. I think that's important to lean into the city and be part of the heartbeat of it. I heard Jesse Easler say this. He's one of the co-owners of the Atlanta Hawks. And he talked about when he was a young entrepreneur in his 20s, and that they had no money, but he like went all in to buy these like Yankees tickets that were on the third baseline, and he ended up sitting next to Jay-Z and Beyonce. I think he sold 2 of them there, and he's like, the how those tickets have paid off is just unbelievable. And I'm like, man, I'm trying to get season tickets somewhere, because I really want to be part of the city, part of the heartbeat of it. And that is one of the things that I love and appreciate about KC, which like I said, had to have my Baldwin's cap today.
Buddy.
but like there is a genuine and I think probably part of it is like, you got to endure the bitter winter here. Like there's a little bit of a Midwest, like there's a grit that's maybe it's that railroad tenacity, whatever it is.
Railroad tenacity.
Yeah,
buddy.
I don't know, but it's like there's some of that, like that Boilermaker attitude, where it's like, okay,
yeah.
we're gonna make this place home. And so you see that even with brands like Made in KC and Made Mob and those guys that really have imprinted themselves into okay, what we love our town here. And so I'm excited to continue to be a part of that. And if we can just get a little bit more vinegar in the barbecue, we'll be set. So
Hey, said like a true Carolina boy right there. Hey, dude, so much there, man. First off, I love hearing you talk about being a dad and what you are prepared to do for your family, bro, and your girls. And from one girl dad to another, give you your flowers. You're a good dad, bro. You're a great
appreciate
dad.
it, man.
And I so love hearing your heart for Kansas City. Yeah, there's a group chat for sure, and I'll get you up to speed on that after this. And I think too, like, the folks that we've had on the show, like so Gabriel from To Bring About, you've probably gotten up to speed on To Bring About podcast. Obviously, John, we got Uncle Bear Halverson from Security Today. He's another guy that's a hoot that you got to meet. All these people too, I know that they'll smile when they listen to this and they hear me dropping their names. Pick up that name I just dropped there. There are so many just cool cats, man. Bump Jonas, how could I forget him? Sprinkle Some Salt podcast. But we are all intent on shining a light on people here, in the city. And some of the podcasts too, they've had people on like the national stage. And I feel like too, like for me, kind of a spoiler alert, like this Kansas City Business Cast is not the only podcast I'm going to do, right? Like I'm getting ideas for another thing. Like my wife has Motherhood in America now. So that's like a thing where
let's go.
Kind of like new iteration of a podcast she used to have, where she interviewed people all over the globe. And I want something for myself, I guess, and other people too. That's more of a worldwide scale. But to go back to what you're saying about what God's doing here in Kansas City, man, I mean, it's a big deal. And I could feel like the little men pushing behind my tear ducts when I was hearing you talk about your passion. I'm just so glad you're here, Brad. I'm so glad you're here. And I know
appreciate it, man,
that as other people get to know you and we on Kansas City Bizcast, we being me, continue to scream about what you've got going on, dude. And continue to make connections. It's going to be beautiful to see I mean, it's beautiful just to see what's already happened, dude, and
Yeah.
what's going to be
Yeah.
coming up in the future. Man, brother,
Yeah.
it's been so good having you on the show. Do you have brunch to get to with the pickleball group today, or is that next Saturday?
We got some brunch, whatever. I mean,
That's
it's a
awesome, man.
potluck situation. Somebody
I
brought
love it.
sausage balls, which I'm like, I thought that was like a Southern thing. Y'all do sausage balls here? Let's go.
Yeah,
So
it is.
so that's that. Man, it's, you know, at the time we're recording this, it's Masters weekend, and so, you know, I'm super relaxed this weekend. It's gonna be good. I might have to hang out.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, we'll make sure this goes live either this Tuesday or next Tuesday. So, man, it's been so good having you on the show. Brad Chandler, everybody, Making Varsity podcast. Follow him on his socials. You're most active on Instagram. Is that correct?
Yeah, most active on Instagram. I'm starting
Okay.
to play a little bit more in LinkedIn. But yeah, Instagram. I'm on
tagging
TikTok
you on
as
LinkedIn.
well. And but yeah, so just
Okay.
most active on Instagram.
Okay, awesome. All right, Brad, appreciate you, man.
Thanks
We'll
so
see
much,
you next
Michael.
time, everybody.
All right, cheers.